We welcome you back to the Eagles Philly Sports Reports pregame shows. Thank you to our sponsors, SeatGeek and Foco, as always, for sponsoring the Eagles pregame show. As always, I'm Ben Goldstein. I am joined by Sam Heine. Sam, we missed last week. Some good, some bad to take away from the show.
Yeah, but anytime you can start the season 1-0, especially going down to Brazil, coming home on a Friday night, first Friday night football game of the season, it's been a long 10 days, but Eagles are 1-0, and we're looking to go to 2-0 tonight back home for another night football game.
Yeah, another primetime game for the Eagles, one of two, the second of many. This one on Monday night. Yeah, Jason Kelce come back. What's your favorite of the three? Which one do you prefer most, Thursday, Sunday, or Monday night?
I think Sunday night is my favorite. I don't like having Thursday night games because you have such a long layoff in between that Thursday night to the next game. But Sunday night, I love being able to just hang out, watch Red Zone, watch all the other games, and then your team plays on that Sunday. Monday night you still get that, but you have to wait that extra day, that extra full day of work or school or whatever you got going on, and then the game's at night, and then you're tired the next day. But Sunday night football is definitely my favorite.
And God forbid a loss on a Monday night. Tuesday is the worst day of the week anyway, so it just completely ruins the week more. Well, something that came out yesterday that is hurting the Eagles tonight and has been making me think all day is no A.J. Brown. He was questionable, suffered a hamstring injury during practice on Friday, didn't practice on Saturday, was listed as questionable in the final report, and then was downgraded to out yesterday, just before the 1:00 slate. Hamstring injury. I mean, obviously this is going to affect the Eagles. How much do Saquon, Devontae, and Dallas need to step up tonight?
Yeah, it's really rare that you see a kind of midweek during the season injury from a player because nowadays these midweek practices really aren't that strenuous on players. They're more so walkthroughs. So for AJ to get hurt to the point where he got downgraded every single day to eventually being listed as out even a full day before the game is definitely concerning. And hopefully we can get him back for next week. But with it being a short week, we will see. And luckily the Eagles do have that plethora of offensive talent because normally a team loses a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL and they're going to really struggle for the next, struggle to get offense, struggle to score points. But the Eagles luckily do have Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and new wide receiver Jahan Dotson. So last year we saw Devontae really go off when AJ was hurt in that playoff game. The offense didn't do much, but Devontae got 148 yards receiving. It's going to be tough, though, because the Falcons do have a really good secondary. And one of the biggest things that was going to be an advantage going into this game for the Eagles was that the Falcons really only have one good cornerback, AJ Terrell. So it's going to be tough to kind of see where he was going to be matched up if he was going to follow AJ, if he was going to pick a side and stay to that side. And then whatever person was matched up on that other guy, Mike Hughes, is going to be just kind of going off. But now I think the Falcons are going to do what they did last week against George Pickens, and wherever Devontae goes, Terrell's going to be following him around. Pickens did have a little bit of success against him last week, but not much. So it's really going to be interesting to see how the Falcons defend the Eagles now with AJ out. But luckily, like I said earlier, the Eagles have a lot of talent on that side of the ball. So even with AJ out, they shouldn't struggle to put up points.
Jahan Dotson will step in tonight as the wide receiver 2. Devontae will be wide receiver 1. He only got 1 reception last week. It's kind of unclear how much Hurts really trusts him. What are you expecting tonight from the new Eagles wide receiver 2 for hopefully just this week?
Yeah, I mean, week 1, you couldn't really expect much from him because he got added in right as that final roster cutdowns were coming. So he was really just learning the offense. So you kind of give him a pass for week 1 for not really doing anything. It was honestly just good to see him get out there because a lot of guys, if they're required that late in the training camp, they have no idea what's going on in the offense. They got to pick it up on the fly. They don't really play a lot of snaps week 1. But having another week to learn the offense, it seems like for a couple of days they've kind of had the idea that AJ could possibly be out. So I'm sure he's been really studying, learning the offense. I mean, he's a former first-round pick. But there also is a reason that Washington was willing to move on from him after just a few years. Uh, Seeing him in this offense as the wide receiver 2 will be interesting. He was able to play a lot more inside week 1, and it's kind of where they expect him to be throughout the season. But he'll be able to go back on the outside, which is where he was in Washington. So definitely expect his targets to go up tonight, and he's going to need to play well because, like I said, I feel like based on what they did last week with Pickens, they're going to probably do the same thing with Terrell and Smith. So he's got to take advantage of that matchup with the lesser corner. And he's definitely going to get his targets tonight, and we'll be able to see early on if Howie made the right move by trading a third-round pick for him.
We sure will. Another thing I'm interested in seeing tonight is what's going to be on with Jalen Hurts. Last week in Brazil, he should have, if the Packers defense could catch the ball, he would have 5 turnovers, including a fumble, which was recovered. Really bad decision making on a lot of those almost end turnovers. I mean, is this a serious problem? Because to me, last week, Hurts looked like Wentz in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a problem. I think one of the biggest things that people, obviously around Eagles land, have been talking about is the Jalen Hurts performance from last week. And I think, at least for me personally, one of the things that frustrates me the most with the conversation is that a lot of people are just willing to kind of throw the performance away because it was week 1 in Brazil. But it's not just week 1. I mean, yes, obviously it's a new season, it's a new system. They were in Brazil, all that kind of stuff. But this goes back to last year. This goes back to 3 years ago where he was not great keeping the football out of harm's way. Elliot Schwartz from WIP put out a great tweet earlier in the week that I wanted to share. So in Jalen's last 10 starts, he has 11 passing touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and 7 fumbles. That is a ton of turnover-worthy plays and turnovers. Obviously, not all fumbles were lost, but when you put the ball on the ground, even if your own team recovers it, it still counts as a fumble. So that is just a track record over the last 10 games of Jalen putting the ball in harm's way. Yes, like I said, it is just week 1, and I know a lot of people just want to toss it aside because it is week 1 and he's a little rusty because he didn't play in the preseason, and that's fine. But if you go back to the quarterback he was last year, that kind of tanked the Eagles season. Obviously it wasn't just him, but his play was part of the reason why the season tanked at the end. He had a turnover problem, and it is something that you can overcome, obviously. And with a new offense, it's going to be a little bit harder. He's still learning the plays, still learning the new offense, trying to figure everything out. But some of the, just like you said, the dumb decisions that he was making. I mean, they had a screen play set up where the screen was covered. He knew it was covered. He stared at it, and then he just threw it to the guy anyway. Should have been a pick six. The play with A.J. Brown where he had to go on defense, rolling to his right, which he still does way too much. Every time he senses any pressure in the pocket, instead of just stepping up in the pocket, he rolls out to the right. Everyone can see it coming, and then he threw that interception in the end zone, fumbling the ball. You can debate whether or not that was at the goal line. You can debate whether that was on Cam, whether that was on Jalen. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It was still put ball on the ground. So it's just a lot of bad decision making for a fifth-year quarterback, and it's crazy to say that he's already in his 5th year. I feel like a lot of people just assume that he's still this young quarterback and still think of him as this young quarterback, but he's in his 5th year and needs to be making better decisions with the ball. I will say part of the can he overcome it? I think that if we're still having this conversation in week 3, 4, 5, then we're going to have to worry. I am, even though I do believe that it is a problem with him, I think it is, you have to be fair and give him time to kind of work through the new offense and see if this is something that he's able to fix with new coaching staff. But I am definitely concerned because it's not just week 1. It's a proven track record over the last year and a half, and even before the 2022. You got to hope that 2022 isn't the outlier season.
Yeah, gotta hope so. But if you look outside of his mishaps that he had against the Falcons with those near turnovers, he had statistically, I mean, he was really good. 20 for 34, 266 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an 80.3 rating. Like, when you look at that, that doesn't scream horrible Hurts, but it's not all about the stats. So, I mean, what kind of Jalen are you going to get tonight with no A.J. Brown?
Yeah, and I think again with like you were saying, some of the positive things. I think one of the biggest things that was positive that came out of last week was he and the Eagles were really good against the blitz. While last year they were bad against 6-man pressures, the Packers really only brought 5-man pressures, but still technically a blitz. He was 5 of 6 against it, and they were doing so well against it that the Packers just stopped blitzing because obviously if you blitz, there's one less person back in coverage, and it makes the defense at a disadvantage if they're not getting home. So I think that's a big positive. And another big positive from Jalen last week was the final drive. I don't think it was very clunky final drive. It wasn't smooth, but at the end of the day, they brought they ran out all the clock. They went all the way down the field, and that drive won them the game. And he had some very big plays on that drive, including a very nice run. So, while the decision making in that is very concerning for the future of this season and the future of his career, I do think that he also showed a lot of positive signs. In terms of who we're going to get tonight, I think one of the biggest things tonight is that with no AJ, he needs to just take what's there. I think last week and what has ailed him in the past is that he tries to hit the home run too much instead of just taking the single. Even the play to Saquon, it was obviously a great throw in the end zone for a touchdown, but it was 2 men around, and he put it on a dime. It was one of those throws where you say, okay, this is our guy, this is our franchise quarterback. But if you go back and look at that play, he had Dallas Goedert wide open underneath. And I think that's part of the dilemma with him not taking those home run shots is that you missed out on those plays, but then you also get the turnovers. So I think tonight with AJ out, your big play guy down the field, I think you just need to take what's there, get the ball out quick, and just kind of move the ball all down the field in chunks instead of just trying to force those big plays, especially when your biggest play guy is not going to be there tonight.
Yeah, but they do have somebody else who is lining up next to Jalen Hurts, who is making his Eagles Lincoln Financial Field debut tonight, and that is Saquon Barkley. First time we get to see him wearing some green. We didn't see him wearing much green last week. 24 carries, 109 yards, averaged 4.5 per run, 2 touchdowns, also received an 18-yard touchdown pass. Saquon is going to be a huge part of the reason the Eagles are going to need to win the game today if they want to without their other big star, A.J. Brown. I mean, it's hard to just say, like, Saquon's just going to do this again, but, I mean, he may just very well do it.
Yeah, he was amazing. I mean, the biggest thing for me, I think, was that receiving touchdown he had. I mean, how many running backs are running out doing a wide receiver wheel route like that, coming down with the ball over 2 defenders, keeping his feet in bounds? Like, that is just not something that running backs normally are able to do. And one of the biggest concerns from people, with the Eagles giving Saquon all that money was, is he on the decline? It's just one game, but I think you saw that he still has that burst. That one play, his second touchdown of the game, when he made that cut and made that guy miss. I mean, that was incredible. And then that one run where he stuck his foot in the ground and then all of a sudden took off for about 40 yards. You see that he still has that burst. One thing that I'd be a little bit hesitant with is the 26 touches I believe he had. That's definitely a little bit on the high end for me. We need Saquon to be healthy down the stretch, and I think having a better offensive line and not playing on MetLife turf and all that stuff is definitely going to help him stay healthy throughout the season. But I'd be okay if he was more around the 20 mark in total touches instead of like going over that 26. But at the same time today, without AJ Brown, I do think they're going to give him the ball a lot. So whatever they have to do to win, but I think over the season they might want to dial him back just a little bit, just to be kind of have him for the longer run.
Yeah, you may see around that number again tonight without A.J. Brown lining up with him. Someone else who was a big star in Brazil was Zach Bond, 2 sacks, 2 QB hits, a tackle for loss, and 15 tackles. I don't think anybody was expecting that from Zach Bond a week ago. I mean, he's going to go out there in his home debut and just do it again with, just
I hope so. I mean, I don't know if he's going to have 15 tackles, but I do like how Vic Fangio used him in the blitz. Some of the things that some of the Eagles reporters were kind of speculating when the Eagles signed him was that he was going to be kind of like a hybrid pass rush linebacker kind of guy just because of his size. He's a little bit on the bigger size for a linebacker, and he hadn't really panned out as a third round pick linebacker for the Saints as kind of the typical stand up linebacker. I mean, he looked great at it the other night, but I think one of the biggest things for him to continue to have success is for him to get some pass rushing snaps on that blitz. I mean, he was doing a great job of chasing down Jordan Love, and obviously with Kirk Cousins tonight, he's a lot less mobile than Jordan, so maybe they'll start to try to blitz him a little bit more. And I think he was pretty good in coverage too. I mean, I didn't notice really anything getting, him really getting torched in coverage or anything like that. A lot of times that was some of the biggest problems with some of the Eagles linebackers of the past, where like they were able to tackle well, but they couldn't really be in coverage. Like Alex Singleton comes to mind. He had 100+ tackles in a season, but he couldn't cover, you or me out there. So I think he did a pretty good job. We'll see how he does tonight. I do expect him to have another good game tonight, and we're definitely going to need him with Bijan Robinson on the other side. And I mean, he's obviously played well enough that the Eagles don't want Devin White active. So, I mean, like I said, I think the biggest thing for him is getting him kind of downhill and using him as a blitzer. I think that's really going to be playing to his strength.
Yeah, I was just about to mention inactives came out a little bit ago. Devin White is one of the Eagles that is inactive. Does that surprise you a little bit? He was injured last week, was never supposed to even be the starter. So why is he getting the money that he's getting? Some confusion.
Yeah, everything that's been going on in this situation is definitely very weird and just kind of doesn't really add up. They gave him guaranteed money, 1-year deal in free agency. He was obviously a all-pro, Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, and normally guys don't decline like that and just kind of drop off the hill at age 26. But for whatever reason, last year in Tampa, he even admitted that he wasn't in the best headspace. So everyone kind of penned him in as the starting middle linebacker for the Eagles, and then he starts all of training camp. He's the number one guy, and then all of a sudden, right before the Eagles are about to go down to Brazil, it comes out that he got hurt, and that it doesn't even matter that he got hurt because Nakobe was going to be the starter anyway, and then he doesn't fly with the team, and now, he's talking to reporters, talking about how he's disappointed and that he's never played special teams before, because normally if you're a backup linebacker, you have to play special teams, but then Tampa Bay reporters were coming out and saying that he's played over 250 snaps with special teams in his career. So it's just like all really weird. And I mean, and another thing I forgot to mention, but after it came out about his injury, there was a report, I believe it was from Jeff McLean, that he was on the trade block before final cutdown days. So if he was starting all of training camp, I don't know why he would all of a sudden just become a backup, but there's something going on behind the scenes, I believe. And I think the reason that this is not, I'm just assuming here, but that special teams comment has kind of stuck out in my head. And, like I said, normally if you're going to be a backup linebacker that's active, you're on special teams. And I think like I said, I don't know, but I think the Eagles might have went to him and he told them he doesn't want to play special teams, which is why he's inactive tonight. But whatever the situation is, we'll get the answers eventually, but I would not be surprised if he's not on this team in next week, 2 weeks. It's really weird.
It sounds like we got some Sammy sources going on.
No sources, it's just weird. It just doesn't make any sense. And if he's interactive, he's not flying with the team. I mean, you had injured guys fly to Brazil. I mean, Isaiah Rodgers wasn't going to play. He flew all the way to Brazil. He could have made the flight. It's not like the flight's going to hurt his ankle anymore. So I don't know. Something fishy's going on behind the scenes there, and I think we'll get an answer pretty soon about what's actually going on.
Yeah, very true. And I mean, AJ Brown, who's inactive tonight, is walking around on the field with his teammates. So inactive guys. Devin White probably may not show face tonight, but we'll see what happens. Let's transition back to Brazil, where the defensive line was a little concerned. You didn't get much from your edge guys. You got nothing. I don't even think Bryce Huff was in Brazil. And you're facing Bijan Robinson tonight.
Yeah, I
You're
mean, I
gonna
don't
need
know if you've
something
heard.
from your line.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've heard, but the reason that the line was terrible was because the field was wet. That's the only reason. But
Okay.
I do
Sure,
believe
sure,
that
sure.
obviously the field does play a factor, but coming into the season, this was the biggest concern that everyone had. You trade away Hassan Reddick because you don't want to pay him. Fine, okay, but you replace him with Bryce during preseason and training camp. Even Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator, tells you that Bryce Huff's not ready to be a three-down player, and that was your biggest concern with him. After signing him, you give him $50+ million guaranteed, and he's never really played the run and only had one season of 10+ sacks after being an undrafted free agent. So, like you said, I don't even know if he made the trip to Brazil because he didn't have any stats. And yeah, the defensive line is super concerning. I don't trust Nolan Smith. Josh Sweat is what he is. He's going to get his 7 sacks probably this year, but it's not going to be consistent. And Bryce Huff, we just don't really know anything about him. So we definitely are going to need a big night from the defensive line tonight. Kirk Cousins, he is a statue back there, but he gets the ball out really fast. One of the things he was trying to do, it didn't work that well because TJ Watt is probably the best edge rusher in the game right now, but he was trying to get the ball out really fast. I expect him to do that again tonight because, like I said, he is a statue back there. He cannot really move after that Achilles injury. He never could really move before, but now it's even worse. But I think what you mentioned it with Bijan Robinson, and I think it's one of the most under talked about things with the defensive line is how many rushing yards the Packers had last week. Packers ran for 163 yards against the Eagles defensive line, and that is going to be a major concern tonight because the Falcons, like you said, have Bijan Robinson, their first-round pick from a year ago, top 10 pick and a running back. So they're going to want to give him the ball, and he's great in space. He's great catching the ball. He's great before contact, after contact. He's going to be one of the top running backs over the next couple of years for sure, and that's definitely a major concern. I mean, Jordan Davis still needs to show that he can be a run-stuffing nose tackle. It's year 3, 4 for him, and there's still question marks about him. Jalen Carter had a good game last week, but we need to see him finish off some sacks. He had a lot of pressures, which is really good, and obviously pressures are good. They get the ball out, but we need to see him kind of finish some sacks. And so the defensive line is definitely a concern tonight. I expect, like I said, with Zach Bond, I think the Eagles are going to try to bring pressure on Kirk because he last week against pressure, he was throwing the ball up and Steelers were intercepting it and all that kind of stuff. So he's definitely prone to just throw it up when he sees pressure in his face. So I wouldn't be surprised if Fangio tries to help them out a little bit. But I think going forward in the season, this might be a trade deadline target for the Eagles to be is another edge rusher because I think they're just going to need more.
Yeah, I want to do a hard transition. You mentioned Kirk, obviously, with the Eagles' defensive line. There ain't nothing much better than seeing Kirk Cousins stroll into Philadelphia for the first home game of the season on primetime. It's the 3rd straight year. He's 0 for 2. Kirk Cousins is. The Eagles are 2-0. I mean, last week, first game back off his injury with a whole new team, a whole new city, like Minneapolis to Atlanta is like 2 different countries. He was 16 for 26, 155 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Are we going to get Kirk Cousins in Minnesota that was iced out wearing all these chains? Or are we going to get Monday night, Thursday, prime time, Lincoln Financial Field, Kirk Cousins tonight?
Yeah, so the thing with Kirk is he's very hard to read, I feel like, because some days he'll come out and he's just gunslinger. He can't miss a throw. He's going up and down the field, and it just seems like he gets the ball out so damn fast. It seems like you can't get close to him. And then there's some games where you're just like, what is this guy doing? And I think so. I saw some stuff from out of Atlanta, that some people believe that they were tipping their plays last week. Something about the way that Kirk Cousins was setting up, the way his feet were set up, and they believe that the Steelers figured out that he was tipping his plays based on how he was standing in the pocket, and they didn't really run anything from under center. It was a lot of shotgun, pistol, that kind of thing. And based on how his feet were set up and where Bijan was next to him, they thought that the Steelers knew exactly what play was coming based on that. So obviously, if that's true, it's like a pitcher tipping their pitches. I mean, they're just going to tee off on you. So I think that if they got that figured out, I still don't trust Kirk in this situation. I think he still doesn't trust that leg. That's another thing that they've been saying a lot coming out of Atlanta. I mean, we've seen it here with Carson Wentz and some other players where when they come back from these injuries, I mean, you saw it the first week with Aaron Rodgers. They just sometimes need a few games to just kind of trust that leg again with them getting hit, with them planting and running on it. And I think he was a little bit gun shy with that as well. But I think, like I said, I think if the Eagles can get pressure on Kirk, they will make him be, primetime Kirk, where he can't really do anything. He's prone to throwing the ball up, prone to interceptions when there's pressure in his face. But if you let him just sit back and dissect you, it could be a long day for the defense. So I think he'll have a better game than his first game. But I don't think that he'll have a good enough game tonight to beat the Eagles.
All right, now we transition into the segments that I think we've done the same since we started this 3 seasons ago, which is crazy. We've been doing this for 3 seasons already.
I know.
Sam, your notable matchups for tonight's game, Eagles-Falcons, Week 2, Monday Night Football at the Linc.
Yeah, so I got 2 today that I think are going to be huge matchups. For the Eagles, I have the first one. We talked about it a little bit already. It's Devontae versus A.J. Terrell. Obviously, like I said before, A.J. Brown's going to be out today. And the last time A.J. was out, Devontae went off for 148 yards. But Terrell is one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, especially on one-on-one coverage. And I do believe the Falcons are just going to stick him on Devontae. And wherever Devontae goes, A.J. goes. And kind of see who's going to win that matchup. And I think if the Eagles are going to win this game, they're going to need Devontae to step up. Not necessarily, he doesn't have to catch 100, get 148 receiving yards, but he definitely needs to have a big game as this team's number 1 receiver today. If A.J. Terrell is locking down Devontae, then it could be a slow day for the offense. It could be tough for them to kind of get things going. Jahan Dotson, like I said, still new to this offense. Still, it could be getting a little rut a little bit, especially if they kind of pack the box for Saquon and then let Terrell do his thing. And then my other one is going to be Kyle Pitts versus Nakobe Dean / Avonte Maddox. I think that Nakobe Dean played really well last week. He was going downhill, but he really struggled in coverage, in my opinion, last week. He was kind of the thing about Nakobe is his size. He's always going to be a great tackler. He's always going to be really good when he's got a full head of steam. He's going to put his head on the ball. He's a really smart player, but his size is always just going to be a little bit of a disadvantage for him. And Kyle Pitts, coming out of Florida, was one of the top tight end prospects to come out in a long time, and a lot of people thought he was going to be the next great tight end. He hasn't really turned out that well, but he's also had really bad quarterback play. And with Kirk last week, you saw him get a touchdown, which he hasn't had in a while. And I think that could be a big kind of connection with him. You saw in Minnesota, Kirk always had really good connections with his tight ends. And Avonte Maddox, too, if he's lined up against Pitts when Pitts is in the slot, it's going to be really tough for Avonte to keep up with him. Again, it's just the size. I mean, Avonte was really, really bad last week in coverage, like just so bad. And I think he's going to be on a short leash, especially with Isaiah Rodgers back. They could eventually move Quinyon inside and put Isaiah Rodgers on that outside position, but to start, they most likely will keep what they had last week. So Kyle Pitts versus Dean and Avonte is a big matchup to watch for me because I think as far as their other offensive weapons, we all know Darius Slay is going to want Drake London, and just knock on wood, backfire on me. I'm not the biggest Drake London fan. I'm just not a huge fan of his, but I think Slay matches up really well against him. And then their other wide receivers, I think Quinyon will be able to do well against because they're more speed guys, and Quinyon's really fast. So I think it should be a pretty good game for the defense, but for the secondary, I should say. But it's going to be definitely interesting to see how they match up with Pitts inside.
Quinyon Mitchell making his home debut for the Eagles, and something just came up on my feet, and this is like the last thing I was expecting to see. Matt Patricia and Bill Belichick are in the building tonight. On the Eagles sideline. Patricia obviously ended up as the defensive coordinator last year for the second half when things really fell apart, and then Bill Belichick. What the hell is going on?
Well, does Belichick work for ESPN now?
I don't think he works for ESPN. I know he does a lot with the Manning cast, but like, why is he?
Because he's suited up like he's doing broadcasting, so maybe he's on the game. Maybe. It is ironic that Bill Belichick and Matt Patricia are in the game, are at the game for Nick Foles' day. But so that's a nice little thing right there. They'll be able to see Nicky get honored, but he might be doing some type of broadcasting thing. I'm not sure. But Patricia being back's weird because he just got fired by the Eagles. So
yeah, I think I know Bill Belichick is doing the Manning cast tonight for a little bit.
Okay.
But that's typically done. Like Eli and Peyton do that from their homes.
Yeah.
So why is Bill at the game?
I don't know.
Some speculation. Just saying. Anyway, moving on.
Real quick, I didn't have this as like because it's not a straight matchup, but I do think that the Falcons safeties and Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates versus Jalen. Like we talked about a lot with Jalen, him putting the ball in harm's way. I'm blanking on the safety for Green Bay who picked him off last week, but he kind of baited him into that throw, made him think Devontae was open, and Xavier McKinney kind of made him think Devontae was open, and then came over the top and picked the ball off. Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons are absolute ball hawks. They have a ton of interceptions over the last few years. And I think with Jalen's history of, trying to make too many big plays and putting the ball in harm's way, I think they're going to try to do what Xavier McKinney did to him last week and try to bait him into taking some shots downfield that maybe he'll think are single coverage that are open, and then he'll come over the top and try to pick it off. So Jalen definitely has to be really, really, really careful about those two guys, because if they're not the best safety duo in the league, I mean, they're right up there. Which is crazy because they're two free agent signings that they got. But those guys are absolute ball hawks. They're two guys that the Eagles tried to sign but couldn't get, and they're really, really good back there. So it's going to be definitely important for Jalen to just not kind of fall into their traps and really make sure that he's keeping the ball out of harm's way for sure.
All right, moving on to our next segment is the SeatGeek Standout Stars. I need to talk to you really quickly. SeatGeek, one of our sponsors. They've been the sponsor of this show since its existence. SeatGeek is the easiest and most efficient way to buy your tickets. Each seat is given a green, red, or yellow dot once you download the app, indicating whether purchasing that ticket would be a good, bad, or fair deal. By using code Philly Sports Report, you will save $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Again, Philly Sports Report, PhillySportsReport. Save $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. The link is in the description of the YouTube stream. It is in the bio of the Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and wherever else you are getting your Philly Sports Reports feed. The link is there. Download the app. Use our code. Save some money. Phillies playoffs are right around the corner. You already know those are expensive. Eagles games are very expensive. Everything's very expensive. With Sam, who may or may not be in Tampa in 2 weeks, watching the Eagles, maybe could be using.
Maybe we need the tickets to come down, plus that SeatGeek code. They are pricey tickets down here for the Tampa game. It is crazy, but we'll see. Maybe they'll come down a little bit, add that $20 on top. We'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll find ourselves there.
All right, our SeatGeek Standout Stars. I'm going to start. The Eagles are going to need a big game from Dallas Goedert tonight, I think. He's going to be their second option for Jalen Hurts throwing the ball, and we didn't see a lot of him in Brazil, but if the Eagles want some success tonight, Dallas Goedert's also going to have to succeed. He's my SeatGeek standout star. Who's yours?
I like that pick. I know we'll get to betting here in a few minutes, but if you're looking at betting, I don't know exactly where Dallas Goedert's odds are, but in terms of receiving yards, but the last game that AJ Brown missed, and then the last game that Devontae Smith missed, Dallas Goedert went over 43.5 yards, I believe. So if it's under that, could be a good little side bet for you. Mine, I'm going to go with Devontae Smith. I just think that he shows when AJ was out last year against Tampa, he showed that he should be and is a wide receiver one in the NFL. I think that even though he is going up against a really good player in AJ Terrell, I think that Devontae's combination of speed and route running ability will be able to get himself open. I think he has over 100 yards today, and I think we leave this game feeling very happy that we have Devontae Smith. And I'll throw another one out there. I also have Quinyon Mitchell getting his first interception of his career tonight. Quinyon played an amazing game in his first game in the NFL. The Packers went right after him, targeted him right away, and he showed up. And we might have found a good one in Quinyon Mitchell. So I think he gets his first interception tonight, and I think we come out of this game again saying, all right, I think we made the right pick here with Q.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't like the Q pick. They may be second thinking what their thoughts on him are tonight. We move on. Thank you to SeatGeek, by the way, for sponsoring this show and that segment. We move on to our next part of the show, the Gamblers R Us locks of the game. Gamblers R Us, you can get all your sports betting analysis over there with Gus and Scott Barber on Philly Sports on YouTube. Follow them on Twitter and Facebook, as well as on all podcast apps. Just look up Philly Sports. You will find the Gamblers R Us. Eagles are -5.5 favorites tonight. Sam, do you like those odds? Also, the over-under is 45.5.
Yeah, so I like the over on that, but I also like the Falcons to cover. I think 5.5 is a lot. I will get to my final prediction. It's a 4-point game. I do think that the Eagles are right to be favored, especially with how the Falcons played last week. But I do think the Falcons have a lot of great players on offense, and they also have a really good defense. So might be I have around that 45.5, but I do think the Falcons cover.
All right. Any side bets? You got any locks as well off of that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I talked about it a little bit. Every one of these bets I've kind of talked about a lot so far today, but Devontae Smith's over-under for receiving yards is only 73.5. Last week he went over that with AJ Brown being there. I think he has a really big game today, so I'm putting him over. Saquon Barkley, anytime touchdown. I liked him last week. I wish we were doing this because I had him for first touchdown in a parlay as well as 2 touchdowns. So that really was a good start to the season for me. I don't know if I'll go first touchdown again today, but anytime touchdown. I think last week was how the push kind of was iffy. I think they're going to use Saquon in more goal line situations. And then I already said it. I think Q Mitchell is going to get his first interception today. So why not put Kirk Cousins over half an interception? Like I said, if he gets pressure in his face, he tends to just kind of throw the ball up a little bit. We've seen that when the Eagles got pressure on him when he came here 2 years ago with Minnesota. Slay had like the best game of his career against them with Justin Jefferson, who's just tossing the ball up. So I think he could definitely be prime for an interception tonight.
We now move to our Sam Foco Fit Check, our first one of the season. Thank you to Foco for sponsoring Real Fans is the best gear. That's why Foco makes legendary gear for the most legendary fans. Click on the link in the description to save 10% off any order at Foco. You save on those overalls. You save on those bobbleheads. Sam, I can see the jersey before you're even showing it. Just show the people.
Yeah, so today we talked about it just a little bit, but today is Nick Foles' retirement from the NFL. He signed a one-day contract with the Eagles, so it's only right to break out the Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles jersey. Of course, anytime you can ref the GOAT of Philly quarterback, you got to do it. Nick Foles, obviously the only quarterback to win a Super Bowl for the Eagles, and I'm extremely lucky to be one of the few that actually have his jersey. I'm actually wearing his T-shirt under it as well. I got this player tee when he was actually off the team. I went to a Modell's and it was on sale, and I said, you know what? I'll just get this T-shirt. It's super on sale. Why not have an Eagles T-shirt? It was after he got traded, and then he came back. I wore it every day, Friday to school, on the whole run to Super Bowl. From the day that Carson Wentz got hurt, the next Friday, I wore it every Friday to school, and it obviously has brought me a lot of good luck. And I can't believe I still have it. It's probably one of like the 10 Nick Foles player tees in the Delaware Valley. I did see though that's really cool. For just one day only, if you're going to the game, the Eagles re-released Nick Foles jerseys from the Super Bowl. They have this old word mark here on the front, and you can pick those up. You got to be one of the lucky ones that can get down to that fan store, but it's really cool they did that. Obviously, being a backup quarterback for such a short time, it's not an easy jersey to get, but I'm lucky enough to have one, and I'll cherish this bad boy forever.
Yeah, what a game, what a run, what a player. And during the ESPN pregame, Jason Kelce came out. He was wearing the South Philly suit. He had the green Italy pullover with the green pants. And he comes out, he brings on two guys with underdog masks. And it's Fletcher Cox and Nick Foles. Like everyone's going crazy. It's a great moment. But outside,
I saw that Eagles posted a picture of Nick holding the mask. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, outside. So I didn't get to watch Nick Foles before the 2017 season because I was not into the Eagles when I was however old in 2013. Outside of that run in 2017-18 and his 7 touchdown game, what is your favorite Nick Foles memory?
So, favorite Nick Foles memory outside of the Super Bowl, obviously. I would have to say the playoff game in Chicago the year after the Super Bowl. I just remember they had nothing going that day offensively. It was so cold in Chicago. They couldn't get anything done. And then Nick Foles just takes them all the way down the field, 4th and goal, rolls out to the right, puts it on golden frickin' Tate, puts it on for the touchdown. They obviously go down and they get the double doink game. But I think that game just showed that, he just, when the lights were the brightest, when it was clutch time, he had that magic in him. I mean, you say you don't really remember him. I remember the Eagles back in like 2014, I think it was. He led them to the playoffs, and the famous Nick Foles left the game with the lead playoff game against the Saints. He took them down, gave them the lead, left the field with the lead with such little time left, and Drew Brees just broke our hearts at home in that game. But ever since he was just drafted here, and he's just, whatever it was when he put on that Eagles uniform, he just had ice in his veins and just became the most clutch quarterback of all time. And I love that about him, how when the lights were brightest, he shined.
He sure did. Thank you to Foco for sponsoring. Clicking the link in the description or the bio to save. 15 minutes from kickoff. The first kickoff at Lincoln Financial Field in 2024. It looked like Lincoln Financial got like a new logo. It's like it's actually Abraham Lincoln's face now. So that's different. Hopefully it'll bring some sort of luck the Eagles' way. We're down to the final 2, Sam. We need some keys to this one. Keys to the game. How are the Eagles going to win this game against the Atlanta Falcons? I don't know. Tell me.
All right. Well, these are going to be the most generic 3 keys to the game, but I think it's just how the Eagles are going to have to do it to win this game. What are the 3 things that you need to do? Number 1, stop the run. Bijan Robinson, we talked about him a ton. Super talented. Eagles defense gave up a ton of rushing yards last week against the Green Bay Packers, and the Falcons are going to try to run the ball today all over the Eagles. If you stop Bijan Robinson, force the playmakers on the outside for the Atlanta Falcons to try to make those plays and for Kirk Cousins to beat you, I think you have a good chance of winning. Number two, I've harped on it all day. I feel like it's the biggest thing that we talk about every week on this show, but pressure on the quarterback. The Eagles sometimes not had a good game in Brazil, but I think that if they can get to the quarterback today, some of those outside guys, and if Jalen Carter can get pressure up the middle, I think Kirk Cousins can have a long day back there. And then number three, Jalen Hurts, do not turn the ball over. We've talked about it ad nauseum. I'm sure if you listen to any of the radio shows or if you've read any of anyone's writing over the last week, it's been about Jalen Hurts and it's been about the turnovers and the turnover plays. Be smart with the ball, utilize Saquon Barkley, take the check down, hit Devontae Smith with anticipation when he's open, hit Dallas Goedert in the short routes, let those great players be the great run after the catch players they can be, keep the ball out of harm's way, and I think the offense can have a big day even without A.J. Brown, and I think they can come out with the win if they do that as well.
All right, time for our predictions. Put your predictions in the chat. We'll look at them. Jason Kelsey just said on ESPN, the Eagles by 50. I don't know about that. I like the prediction. I don't know.
It's good to know he's become biased since joining the media, or not.
Yeah, I mean, nothing.
Good to know that he's become a biased media member.
Yeah, it's things we love to see. My prediction, I was in the 30s. I thought the Eagles were going to get 30 today on Kirk and the Falcons. No A.J. Brown. I've dropped down to the 20s. I have the Eagles still winning this game. Oh, what did I say? 28-17. I have the Eagles winning today.
Big day for the
Close
defense.
to 30, but not quite 30.
Okay. So I have the Eagles winning as well. I have them winning 27-23. I think that they get a big touchdown late to kind of go from 20 to 27, and then the Falcons, get a field goal or whatever, however that works out. But I have them winning 27-23. I think it's going to be a closer game throughout it. I think it's going to take a little bit for the Eagles offense to work without A.J. Brown, but I think they come out second half, kind of get that offense churning a little bit, and then they get a late touchdown and walk out of here 2-0 and leading the division.
That would be great. Everyone else, I mean, the Cowboys got their kicked. The Giants lost. The Washington won, but they're 1-1. The Niners lost. A lot of the top teams in the NFC.
I mean, I tell you, we got the Saints and the Bucks coming up. Those games are looking a lot harder than we thought they were going to be in the beginning of, when the schedule first came out. But it's definitely good that those Cowboys, Lions, 49ers already have a loss on their schedule. We can get to 2-0, already have a one-game lead on all those guys. It can definitely go a long way down the stretch because, you can't win a division or win a conference this time of year, but you can for sure lose it. So, against these lesser opponents, at least we think they're lesser opponents, need to take care of business for sure.
Yeah, it looks like the gauntlet that we had last year is going to be weeks 3 and 4.
Yeah,
it's going to be have a bye after.
The teams no one thought that they were even going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I did predict when we did our schedule release show that the Eagles were going to lose both those games. So we'll see what happens. They're not losing tonight, though. Thank you to our sponsors, SeatGeek and Foco, for sponsoring. Check out PhillySportsReports.com post-game for Ethan Whitley's recap. Check it out tomorrow for my takeaways for the day later. Follow us on our social media. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Like, subscribe, follow Sam, follow me. See you next week. Go Birds!
Go Birds!